The wind howled across the rooftop, carrying the bitter chill of Washington, D.C. in January. 6 stories below, crowds of dignitaries filed into the Capitol building, unaware of the invisible threat positioned 1,500 meters away. A single figure in winter camouflage lay motionless on the frosted gravel of an abandoned office building, breath controlled to minimize barrel disturbance. Through the loopholed Mark 5 HD scope, Secretary of Defense Alexander Freeman appeared as close as a man across a dinner table. The crosshairs settled on Freeman's left temple as he paused to shake hands with a senator. The shooter's finger caressed the trigger, applying pressure with microscopic precision. The M24A3 barked, its report muffled by a state-of-the-art suppressor. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds, a lifetime in combat, before finding its mark with devastating precision. Secretary Freeman dropped instantly. His security detail reacted a full second after he was already beyond saving. By the time the first sirens wailed, the shooter had disappeared, leaving behind no shell casings, no fingerprints, no DNA. Only the lingering signature of a shot almost no one on Earth could make. 3,000 miles away, Elizabeth Beth Hayes moved methodically through Fort Richardson's armory. Her practiced hands performed inventory with machine-like efficiency. To the casual observer, she was just another supply clerk. Competent, unremarkable, invisible. Exactly as she'd planned. At the back of the armory, nearly forgotten beneath a dust cover, sat an old M24 sniper rifle. It had been scheduled for decommissioning weeks ago, but somehow kept getting overlooked. Beth had deliberately avoided it until now, but today something pulled her toward it like a gravitational force she couldn't resist. She lifted the weapon carefully, muscle memory taking over as she checked the chamber and engaged the safety with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. The familiar smell of Hops No. 9 solvent filled her nostrils, triggering memories she'd spent 3 years trying to bury. Her hands moved automatically, field stripping the weapon with speed and confidence that went far beyond standard armory training. Lost in the ritual of weapon maintenance, Beth didn't notice the figure watching her from the doorway. Colonel Robert Winters stood silently, his weathered face impassive as he observed the supply clerk handling the sniper rifle with expertise that betrayed her carefully constructed cover. Winters was a battle-hardened veteran of Desert Storm and Operation Just Cause in Panama, whose steel-gray hair and deep-set eyes spoke of decades watching America's enemies through rifle scopes and satellite feeds. He watched Beth work for several minutes, noting how she checked headspace with a precision gauge, how she examined the crown of the barrel for microscopic imperfections. Beth sensed his presence before she saw him, that prickling awareness of being watched that combat veterans never truly lose. She forced herself to maintain the same pace, to not betray the sudden spike in her heart rate. "That's some mighty fine work, Specialist Hayes," Winters said, his voice carrying the gravelly texture of too many cigars and too many nights in desert dust. "Thank you, sir," Beth replied without looking up, keeping her voice neutral, just giving it a proper cleaning before decommission. Winters stepped into the armory, the door closing behind him with a soft click. "Mind if I take a look? Been a while since I've handled an M24. Beth reluctantly handed over the rifle. Winters took it with the easy familiarity of an old friend, his eyes narrowing as he turned the stock, fingers tracing over a small mark burned into the wood. An elegant design of a stylized eye surrounded by crosshairs. The insignia of the Ghost Division, a unit that officially never existed. "Interesting marking," Winters said casually, though his eyes had sharpened with recognition. "Almost looks like some kind of unit insignia." "Probably just damage from field use, sir," Beth replied, her pulse quickening. Winters nodded slowly. "Specialist Hayes, how long have you been at Fort Richardson?" 3 years, 2 months, sir." "And before that, where were you stationed?" "Fort Benning for basic, then Fort Lee for supply training." Winters handed the rifle back to her. "Funny thing about military records, sometimes they tell stories that don't quite add up." The air between them grew heavy with unspoken knowledge. Beth resumed cleaning the rifle, her movements precise despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. "Is there something specific you need from the armory, Colonel?" "Actually, there is," Winters said, withdrawing a slim Fally folder from his jacket. He laid a photograph on the workbench, Secretary Freeman lying on the Capitol steps surrounded by panicked security personnel. "I need information about this." "What would I know about that, sir?" Nothing officially, Winters agreed, but unofficially, I think you might recognize the shooter's signature. The FBI ballistics report estimates the shot was taken from approximately 1,500 meters, a range that exceeds the capabilities of all but a handful of shooters in the world. I'm just a supply clerk, sir. Are you? Winter's voice hardened slightly. Because your hands tell a different story, Specialist Hayes. Or should I say, Lieutenant Elizabeth Hayes. The name hit Beth like a physical blow. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud in 3 years. Her cover identity had been meticulously constructed. New fingerprints, new dental records, new background. The woman known as Lieutenant Hayes was officially dead, listed as killed in action during a helicopter crash in the Hindu Kush Mountains. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, Colonel, she said carefully. Winters placed another document on the table. It was a personnel form with her photograph, not the current one with brown hair cut in a regulation bob, but from before when she wore her blonde hair pulled back in a tight braid, her eyes harder, more focused. Ghost Division, Winters said quietly. The most elite sniper unit ever assembled. Officially, it never existed. Unofficially, it changed the course of conflicts in 6 countries. And you, Lieutenant Hayes, were its star performer. Call sign, Phantom. That file should have been destroyed, she said, finally abandoning the pretense. It was, Winters confirmed, along with everything else related to Ghost Division after the Hindu Kush incident. Officially, none of you ever existed. Then how do you have it? Because I created Ghost Division, Elizabeth. I recruited the first generation of operators. I designed the training protocols. I selected the targets. And I recommended you for the program when your marksmanship scores broke every record at Camp Perry. What do you want? She asked finally. I need your help. Secretary Freeman wasn't the first high-profile assassination in recent months. There have been 3 others, all with the same signature. Impossible shots, perfect execution, no evidence left behind. All targets connected to classified military programs. And you think I'm responsible? Beth's voice carried a dangerous edge. No, Winters said firmly. I think someone is using ghost techniques to eliminate targets connected to a classified program. Someone with training similar to yours. If what you're saying is true, then this shooter would have to be someone from the program, she said. And everyone in my unit died in Afghanistan. I was the only survivor. Are you certain about that? Did you see the bodies? The question struck deep. She had seen her team ambushed through her rifle scope, had watched helplessly as they were cut down one by one. But in the chaos that followed, as she fought her way out of the mountains wounded, she'd never actually confirmed their deaths. The official report was a cover-up, Winters interrupted, designed to bury the truth about what happened that day, about who betrayed your team. What do you know about it? Not here. Meet me at 2100 hours. Officers' quarters, Building 47, Room 212. Come armed but discreet. I'll tell you everything I know. Without waiting for a response, he turned and left the armory. Beth stood motionless for several seconds. After 3 years of carefully maintained anonymity, her past had found her with devastating precision. The memories came unbidden as Beth drove back to her apartment. She remembered the day Colonel Winters, then Major Winters, had approached her at the shooting range after she'd set a new marksmanship record. Lieutenant Hayes, he'd said, how would you like to make a real difference in this war? The question had seemed strange. As an Army sniper, she was already in a position to make a difference. But Winters had been recruiting for something else entirely. A unit so classified that its members would officially cease to exist. Ghost Division. 8 operators, each selected for specific skills that made them the most lethal precision strike force ever assembled. Their commander was William Iron Cooper, a former Force Recon Marine with nerves of steel and tactical brilliance. Michael Eagle Reynolds served as Beth's spotter, able to read wind and weather conditions with almost supernatural accuracy. Rebecca Oracle Sanchez handled communications and intelligence, while David Doc Martinez kept them alive through injuries that would have killed lesser operators. Beth also recalled Cooper occasionally mentioning his wife Sarah during rare moments of downtime, a CIA analyst he'd met during a joint operation in the Balkans. Personal details were kept to a minimum in Ghost Division, but the team knew she existed as Cooper's emergency contact. Inside her apartment, Beth moved directly to the bedroom closet, pushing aside hanging clothes to reveal a small keypad hidden in the back wall. She entered a 12-digit code, and a section of the wall slid aside, revealing a hidden room barely larger than a walk-in closet. Inside was everything Elizabeth Hayes wasn't supposed to possess: weapons, passports with different identities, communication equipment, and a laptop containing encrypted files on various subjects of interest. Beth retrieved the laptop and powered it on, navigating to the file labeled Hindu Kush Incident. The mission had seemed routine by their standards: infiltrate the Afghanistan-Pakistan border to observe and potentially eliminate a Taliban commander named Aziz Rahman. Everything had gone according to plan until the second night. Beth was in position, maintaining overwatch through her scope, when she saw movement on a ridge that should have been clear. Too many figures approaching her team's position from multiple directions. "Overwatch to team leader," she had whispered into her comm. "Multiple hostiles approaching your position from the north and east. At least 12 figures, armed." Cooper's voice had come back, tense but controlled. "Confirmed. We're seeing movement to the south as well. This isn't random. They know we're here. Pulling back to extraction point, Charlie." What followed was etched into Beth's memory with horrific clarity. Her teammates had been surrounded, caught in a carefully orchestrated ambush. Through her scope, she'd watched as Cooper directed their defensive response, trying to fight their way to the extraction point. One by one, they'd fallen. Martinez first, shot while trying to drag a wounded Sanchez to cover. Then Reynolds, her spotter, killed by what appeared to be a sniper. Cooper had fought the longest, his rifle claiming multiple enemies before he too disappeared in an explosion that illuminated the night. Beth had remained in position, using her rifle to create chaos that might allow any survivors to escape. But as dawn approached, there was no movement from her team's last position. Only enemy fighters searching the area. A bullet had slammed into the rock beside her head, then another ripped through her shoulder. Her position compromised, she'd had no choice but to abandon her post and begin the harrowing journey back to friendly territory. The official reports stated that the entire team had been killed. Beth had attended their funerals, standing at attention as their families received folded flags. She'd even attended Sarah Cooper's separate memorial service, watching from a distance as the widow accepted condolences with stoic composure. 2 months later, still recovering from her wounds, she'd been approached by a stern-faced officer who offered her a choice: assume a new identity with a non-combat role, or face questions about the failed mission. The implication was clear. Someone needed a scapegoat, and a sniper who had survived while her team died made a convenient target. Beth closed the laptop. Winters had suggested the official report was a cover-up, that someone had betrayed her team. If he knew who was responsible, their meeting tonight wasn't optional. The officers' quarters at Fort Richardson were housed in a utilitarian 3-story building. Beth approached from the east, having parked her vehicle several blocks away, and proceeded on foot. She wore civilian clothes, a knit cap covering her distinctive hair, and a scarf concealing the lower portion of her face. The Glock 19 nestled in a custom holster against her ribs, loaded with subsonic hollow-point ammunition. A backup weapon, a compact SIG P365, was strapped to her ankle. Room 212 was located at the end of a hallway on the second floor. She knocked 3 times, then twice more, an old recognition pattern from her ghost days. The door opened immediately, revealing Winters in civilian clothes. The room had been transformed into an impromptu command center. A laptop sat open on the coffee table, surrounded by file folders and photographs. The windows were covered with heavy blackout curtains, and a signal jammer blinked on the kitchen counter. "You came," Winters said. "You said you had information about who betrayed my team," Beth replied. "That's not something I could ignore. Have a seat. What I'm about to tell you goes against everything in my 30 years of military service. It involves betrayal at the highest levels in a conspiracy that has already claimed dozens of lives." Beth remained standing, her posture balanced for immediate action if necessary. "I'll stand. Just tell me what you know." Winters moved to the laptop and turned it to face her. On the screen was a photograph of a distinguished-looking man in his 60s wearing the uniform of a major general. "Victor Maxwell," Winters said, "currently the head of Special Weapons Development at the Pentagon, and the man who gave the direct order for your team's final mission in the Hindu Kush." "I never received orders directly from him. Cooper handled all mission briefings. Exactly. Maxwell maintained distance, plausible deniability. But he selected the targets, authorized the operations, and ultimately, he's the one who betrayed your team to enemy forces. The accusation hung in the air. A major general betraying American operators to the enemy defied everything Beth had been trained to believe about the chain of command. That's a serious accusation. What evidence do you have? Winters spread several documents across the coffee table. Financial records showing payments to offshore accounts, communication logs indicating information leaks, and most damning, a photograph that showed Maxwell meeting with Rahman, the Taliban commander who had been their target. This was taken 2 weeks before your mission, Winters continued, by a CIA asset in Pakistan. Why would he do it? Money? Partly, Winters confirmed. The offshore accounts contain over $30 million, but Maxwell's motivations go beyond simple greed. He's been systematically eliminating rivals and building his own power base within military intelligence for years. If what you're saying is true, why hasn't he been arrested? Because he's protected. His connections extend to the highest levels of government. And because officially, Ghost Division never existed. Your missions were off the books, which means any evidence of betrayal is equally inadmissible. He pointed to the laptop where Secretary Freeman's assassination photo was now displayed. These recent killings bear all the hallmarks of Ghost Division training, and all 4 targets had one thing in common. They were investigating aspects of Maxwell's pet project, something called Thanatos. What's Thanatos? I don't know yet, but I believe it's connected to why Maxwell betrayed your team, and I believe one of your former teammates is carrying out these assassinations. That's impossible. They're dead. I saw them die. Did you? Winters challenged gently. You saw them fall. You saw explosions and gunfire. But in the chaos of combat, with limited visibility and your own position compromised, can you be absolutely certain? If one of my teams survived, she said slowly, why would they be assassinating high-level officials? And why now, 3 years later? Winters pulled out another file. Because of this, Dr. Alan Mercer, nuclear physicist and former military consultant. He was killed 2 weeks ago, single shot to the head from approximately 1,500 meters, officially ruled a hunting accident. Mercer was working on a classified review of the nuclear arsenal. His findings suggested unauthorized access to launch codes and possible tampering with safeguard protocols. The day before his death, he requested an urgent meeting with the Joint Chiefs to discuss critical security vulnerabilities. Winters pulled out another photograph showing Mercer meeting with someone in what appeared to be a secure facility. This is from security footage at Los Alamos. The person Mercer is meeting with has been identified as Major Michael Reynolds. Beth stared at the image, her heart racing. Reynolds, her spotter, the man she'd seen fall through her scope in the mountains of Afghanistan. Reynolds is alive, she whispered. It appears so, Winters confirmed, and he's not the only one. We have partial facial recognition matches suggesting Rebecca Sanchez accessed a secure terminal at the NSA headquarters 3 months ago. And there are unconfirmed reports of someone matching William Cooper's description at a private military contractor facility in Virginia. The revelations cascaded through Beth's consciousness. Her teammates, her family, potentially alive. But if they were alive, why had they allowed her to believe they were dead for 3 years? And why were they now involved in assassinating government officials? I need more than grainy photos and unconfirmed reports, she said. If what you're saying is true, if Maxwell betrayed us and my team survived, where have they been for 3 years? And why are they killing these specific targets? Those are exactly the questions we need to answer, Winters replied. I need your help, Elizabeth. You're the only Ghost Division operator I can locate with certainty, and you're the only one whose motivations I can trust. What exactly are you asking me to do? Help me find your teammates, help me uncover what Thanatos is, and if necessary, help me stop whoever is carrying out these assassinations before they trigger a national security crisis. And if I refuse, if I walk out that door and disappear, then I suspect you'll be the next target, Winters replied gravely. Whoever is behind these killings has been systematically eliminating anyone connected to Ghost Division. The only reason you've been safe so far is because your new identity has been effective. But now that I've found you, it's only a matter of time before they do too. Beth took the encrypted flash drive Winters offered. I'm not committing to anything yet, but I'll look at what you have. As she left, Beth paused at the door. If you're playing me, Colonel, if this is some kind of setup, you should know I haven't forgotten how to disappear, and I haven't forgotten how to eliminate threats. Winter's expression remained steady. I would expect nothing less from Phantom. The apartment felt different when Beth returned. Vulnerable, exposed. She connected Winters' flash drive to her secure laptop, running multiple virus scans before accessing the contents. The files were extensive. Surveillance photos, classified reports, financial records, all pointing to a conspiracy centered around General Maxwell and Project Thanatos. The most disturbing files were those containing possible sightings of her former teammates. There were multiple instances of individuals matching their descriptions, appearing at secure facilities, military installations, and government buildings in the months preceding each assassination. The evidence wasn't conclusive, but it was compelling. Beth found herself torn between hope that her teammates had survived and fear of what they might have become. What troubled her most was the thought of Cooper possibly being involved. She recalled his dedication to the team, his unwavering moral compass, despite the morally ambiguous missions they often undertook. As dawn approached, Beth began systematic preparations, gathering essential equipment from her hidden room and packing it into a nondescript duffel bag. Everything she would need to operate independently if Winters proved untrustworthy. As she worked, a subtle noise from the living room froze her in place. The nearly imperceptible sound of metal against metal, like a lock being manipulated by expert hands. Someone was attempting to enter her apartment. Beth drew her Glock silently, moving to a position with clear sight lines to the front door but concealed from immediate view. The lock disengaged with a soft click, and the door opened slowly. A figure slipped inside. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, moving with fluid grace. His face was obscured by a balaclava, but his movements were hauntingly familiar. Beth held her position, controlling her breathing as the intruder swept the main living area with practiced efficiency. When he approached the closet with her hidden room, Beth made her decision. "Stop right there," she ordered, her voice deadly calm as she emerged from cover with her weapon trained on the intruder's center mass. "Hands where I can see them." The figure froze, then slowly raised his hands. "Been a long time, Phantom," he said, his voice muffled by the balaclava but unmistakably familiar. "Take off the mask," Beth commanded, her aim unwavering. The intruder complied, pulling the balaclava up to reveal a face Beth had last seen through a rifle scope in the mountains of Afghanistan. Michael Reynolds, her former spotter, and the man she'd believed dead for 3 years. "Hello, Elizabeth," Reynolds said, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. For a moment, something broke through her professional composure, a flash of raw emotion, quickly suppressed but still visible in her eyes. This man had been her partner, her other half in the field. "You're supposed to be dead," she managed, her voice controlled despite the turmoil within. "So are you," Reynolds countered. "Elizabeth Hayes, nice cover. Almost didn't find you." "Why are you here?" "Same reason Winters found you. Someone's killing people connected to Ghost Division, and they're using our techniques to do it." "And how do I know you're not that someone?" Beth asked coldly. "If I wanted you dead, Phantom, you wouldn't have heard me coming. Winters told me you were spotted at Los Alamos with Dr. Mercer before he was killed," Beth said, still not lowering her weapon. "I was trying to protect him," Reynolds replied, his expression darkening. "Failed, obviously, just like I'm trying to protect you. We need to move, Elizabeth. Your position is compromised. Winters is too." "How do you know about Winters?" "Because I've been watching him for months. He's getting close to the truth about Thanatos, and that makes him a target." Reynolds checked his watch. "We have maybe 15 minutes before a cleanup team arrives. They followed Winters to your armory yesterday, then to his quarters last night. They know he's found you." "Where would we go?" she asked, finally lowering her weapon slightly. "Somewhere safe, somewhere we can talk properly. Cooper is waiting with transport. Sanchez is running interference on surveillance systems." The mention of her other teammates sent a jolt through Beth's system. "They're alive too? All of you?" "Not all of us. Martinez didn't make it. But the rest of us survived, and we've been working to uncover who betrayed us and why." "Cooper's really alive?" she asked, needing the confirmation. What about Sarah? Is she part of this too? Reynolds' expression hardened. Sarah's situation is complicated. Cooper will explain everything, but right now we need to move. Beth made her decision. She holstered her weapon and quickly completed her preparations. Why didn't you contact me? 3 years, Reynolds. I thought you were all dead. We couldn't risk it. After the ambush, we didn't know who to trust. Maxwell had connections everywhere. By the time we confirmed you'd survived, you were already established in your new life here. Cooper thought it was safer to leave you out of it. Out of what exactly? Beth demanded. The hunt for Maxwell, Reynolds replied grimly, and the truth about Project Thanatos. It goes deeper than you can imagine, Elizabeth, all the way to the top. Again, a tactical vehicle waited at the rendezvous point. As they approached, Beth recognized the driver instantly. William Cooper, her former commander, looking older than his years, silver threading through his close-cropped dark hair. New lines etched into his face. Her step faltered slightly at the sight of him. Alive, breathing, real. Reynolds took the passenger seat while Beth slid into the back beside Rebecca Sanchez, whose black hair was cut shorter than Beth remembered. You found her, Sanchez said, her eyes meeting Beth's. Welcome back, Phantom. There was a moment where Sanchez reached out, briefly squeezing Beth's hand, a small gesture that spoke volumes in a team where physical contact was rare. Secure the perimeter, Cooper ordered immediately, falling into command mode as they pulled away. Standard protocol. Reynolds, run a full electronic sweep. Sanchez, prepare the briefing materials. Where are we going? Beth asked. Safe house about 60 miles north, Cooper replied, eyes never leaving the road. Established it 18 months ago. Off-grid, defensible, stocked for extended occupation. In Winters? Cooper's expression hardened. What did he tell you? That Maxwell betrayed Ghost Division, that he's running something called Project Thanatos, that you and the others might be alive and killing high-value targets. Cooper exchanged a glance with Reynolds in the rearview mirror. He's right about Maxwell and Thanatos. The rest is complicated. Uncomplicated for me, Beth said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. When we reach the safe house, Cooper replied, not here. We're being followed, Beth said quietly after several minutes, noting the distant headlights that had maintained a consistent 3-4 mile gap. Cooper nodded without looking back. 2 vehicles. Picked them up when we left the main highway. Thanatos operators? Beth asked. Possible, Reynolds replied. Or Winters' security detail. Cooper made a sharp turn onto a barely visible access road. We'll find out. Countermeasures ready? Sanchez produced what appeared to be a standard first aid kit. Inside was a collection of electronic countermeasure devices designed to disrupt tracking systems and communication networks. Prepped and ready. After executing a perfect J-turn on the icy surface, they now faced the direction they had come from. Weapons ready. Government-issue Suburbans, Reynolds observed through binoculars after the pursuing vehicles came into view. 4 occupants in the lead vehicle, 3 in the second. Professional posture, tactical positioning. Only one way to find out, Cooper decided. He flashed the vehicle's lights in a specific pattern, a recognition signal from their Ghost Division days. After a moment, the lead Suburban flashed its lights in response. The correct countersignal. Winters' security detail, Cooper confirmed, putting the vehicle back in gear, which means our timetable just accelerated. If they're watching Winters, they're watching us too now. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the safe house, a reinforced structure built into the side of a mountain, nearly invisible against the natural terrain. Welcome to Olympus, Cooper said. Our last remaining untouched safe house. Inside, the safe house was Spartan but functional. A main room with communications equipment and tactical planning space, a small kitchen area, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom with medical supplies. Every aspect was designed for operational efficiency rather than comfort. Cooper gathered them in the main room, where Sanchez had transformed the central table into a tactical display showing maps, photographs, and intelligence analyses. Time for that uncomplicated explanation, Beth said. Cooper nodded, his expression grave. Project Thanatos, officially designated as an advanced sniper training program developed for counterterrorism operations. In reality, it's Maxwell's private assassination program designed to eliminate threats to his power base and advance his political agenda. Sanchez brought up photographs of military personnel and training scenarios. Maxwell began recruiting candidates immediately after Ghost Division was officially disbanded. Unlike our unit, which selected operators based on exceptional skill and psychological stability, Thanatos prioritizes psychological malleability and absolute loyalty to Maxwell personally. The display shifted to show training facilities and equipment specifications. They've replicated our techniques, our operational protocols, even our specialized equipment, but with one critical difference. Thanatos operators are conditioned using experimental psychological techniques to ensure compliance without question. Brainwashing, Beth said flatly. More sophisticated than that, Sanchez corrected. Targeted neurochemical conditioning combined with specialized psychological protocols. Cooper took over, pointing to a display showing timeline analyses of recent assassinations. For the past 18 months, Thanatos operators have been systematically eliminating individuals who pose threats to Maxwell's operation. Initially, these were former military personnel who had knowledge of Ghost Division. Then they expanded to government officials investigating unusual defense expenditures. Now they're targeting high-level officials with access to nuclear command structures. Why nuclear? Beth asked. That's what we've been trying to determine, Cooper replied grimly. Our best intelligence suggests Maxwell is positioning for some kind of coup within military command structures. The targets eliminated recently all held positions related to nuclear security protocols or command authorization. Reynolds added, Secretary Freeman was the third member of the Nuclear Command Authority to die in suspicious circumstances within the past year. If this pattern continues, Maxwell could potentially compromise the entire nuclear command structure. And Winters? Where does he fit into all this? Complicated, Sanchez admitted. He was Maxwell's mentor and superior officer for years. When evidence of Thanatos first emerged, we assumed Winters was complicit. It wasn't until he began his own investigation that we realized he might be an ally. Or setting a trap, Beth countered. He found me too easily, and he knew exactly where to look for the Ghost Division insignia on that M24. Cooper nodded approvingly. We've maintained similar skepticism. That's why we've limited his access to our operations. Which brings us to why we needed to find you, Reynolds said. 3 weeks ago, Maxwell's security protocols changed dramatically. Something big is happening, and we need to infiltrate his inner circle to find out what. Sanchez activated another display showing the profile of a defense contractor. Vertex Dynamics, officially a cutting-edge weapons development company. Unofficially, Maxwell's private research and development division for Project Thanatos. They're hosting a major fundraising gala next week in Seattle. Exclusive attendance, highest level security, and Maxwell will be present personally. We need to get inside, Cooper stated. Extract intelligence on whatever operation Maxwell is preparing, and if necessary, eliminate the threat. And you want me for this operation? Beth said, understanding dawning. Because I'm the only one Maxwell hasn't identified as a survivor. Precisely, Cooper confirmed. Maxwell knows Reynolds, Sanchez, and I survived. He's been hunting us for 3 years. But you officially killed in action. Given a new identity, you're the ghost he doesn't see coming. There's more, Sanchez said quietly. We have reason to believe Maxwell wasn't working alone in betraying Ghost Division. The operational complexity, the level of intelligence compromise, it suggests involvement from someone with intimate knowledge of our protocols. Someone inside the unit? Beth asked. Possibly, Cooper acknowledged, or someone in the command structure with direct oversight. Winters is a candidate, but there are others. Cooper, she said, meeting his gaze directly. What about Sarah? Reynolds said her situation was complicated. A shadow of pain crossed Cooper's face, quickly suppressed, but unmistakable. Sarah is alive, he said after a moment. But she's being held by Maxwell, has been for almost 3 years now. Her death was staged, just like ours. As leverage against you, Beth concluded. Cooper nodded, his expression tightly controlled. Maxwell made contact 6 months after Hindu Kush. Sent proof of life in a clear message. Any move against him, any attempt to expose Thanatos, and Sarah dies. But you've still been working against him. Within parameters, Cooper explained, gathering intelligence, tracking Thanatos operations, but never directly engaging Maxwell or coming close enough to trigger his threat. Until now. As Beth inspected a custom-modified Glock 19 later that evening, Cooper approached her privately. "We need to talk," he said, his voice pitched low enough that the others couldn't hear, "about what happened in Hindu Kush. 3 years late for that conversation, wouldn't you say?" Elizabeth, Cooper's use of her real name, caught her attention. "I know what you saw through that scope. I know what you believe happened to us, but there's more to the story, things you couldn't have seen from your position." She finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "Then tell me all of it." Cooper glanced toward Reynolds and Sanchez, who were busy with their own preparations. "Not here, not now. There are things the others don't know, things I've kept compartmentalized for their protection." "Tonight," she agreed, full disclosure. Night fell over the safe house. Beth found Cooper alone in the communications room, reviewing satellite imagery of the Vertex Dynamics facility. He acknowledged her arrival with a slight nod, then secured the door behind her. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room," he began without preamble. "Not Reynolds, not Sanchez, not Winters. This stays between us until the mission is complete." "Understood," Beth replied, settling into a chair opposite him. "The ambush in Hindu Kush wasn't just a betrayal, Elizabeth. It was a test. A field evaluation of Maxwell's earliest Thanatos operators against established Ghost Division personnel. The revelation struck Beth like a physical blow. He used us as training targets? Worse," Cooper's voice hardened. "He used us as proof of concept. If his Thanatos operators could eliminate an entire Ghost Division team, it would validate his program and secure continued funding and support from certain elements within military command." "But you survived," Beth pointed out. "Not according to plan," Cooper acknowledged. "Martinez died immediately. Sniper shot to the head from extreme range. Sanchez was wounded, but I managed to get her to cover. Reynolds took shrapnel from an RPG but remained operational. We fought our way to the emergency extraction point, called in our own assets using protocols outside the official mission parameters." "Assets Maxwell didn't know about," Beth surmised. "Exactly. Every Ghost Division commander established independent extraction options after the Azerbaijan incident. Maxwell knew our official protocols, but not the contingencies I'd established personally." "Why let me believe you were dead?" she asked, the question that had been burning inside her since Reynolds' appearance. "That wasn't the plan. Intel reported you killed during extraction, sniper fire while boarding a helicopter. We mourned you, Elizabeth. It wasn't until Sanchez hacked classified personnel files 6 months later that we discovered you'd been given a new identity and relocated." "And still you kept your distance," Beth pressed. "Because by then we understood what we were facing," Cooper explained. "Maxwell's reach extended throughout military and intelligence communities. Anyone connected to us was in danger. You had been given a chance at a new life. I made the call to leave you there, safe in anonymity." "There's more," Cooper continued, "something I haven't shared with Reynolds or Sanchez. The intelligence that sent us to Hindu Kush, the operation targeting Rahman, it didn't come through standard channels. It came directly from Winters." "Winters set us up?" "I don't know," Cooper admitted, a rare confession of uncertainty from a commander known for decisive judgment. "The intelligence was solid. Rahman was exactly where Winters said he would be. But the precision of the ambush, the coordination of the attack, someone provided our operational details to the enemy forces. If Winters was working with Maxwell, then we're walking into another trap by trusting him now," Beth finished, "which is why I've maintained operational security, even with our own team. If Winters is compromised, the less Reynolds and Sanchez know about our suspicions, the safer they'll be if things go sideways." "What's our play, then?" she asked, falling naturally into the operational planning rhythm they'd established years ago. "We proceed with the infiltration of Vertex Dynamics," Cooper decided, "but with enhanced contingencies. You'll attend the gala as planned, but I'll position independently as Overwatch. Reynolds and Sanchez will coordinate support, but without knowledge of our suspicions regarding Winters. And if Winters is compromised, then we eliminate the threat," Cooper stated flatly, "regardless of his former status or connection to the unit. There's one more thing you should know," Cooper added, his voice taking on a gravity that commanded Beth's complete attention. "Project Thanatos isn't just about creating elite assassins, According to intelligence we've gathered, Maxwell is positioning for control of Nuclear Release Authority. The recent eliminations were all members of the Nuclear Command Authority. He's creating a pathway to nuclear weapons control, Beth concluded, the full implications dawning with horrifying clarity. With operators conditioned for absolute loyalty and zero moral constraint, Cooper confirmed. If he succeeds, Maxwell would effectively control the most powerful weapons in history, outside any legitimate command structure or oversight. The stakes clarified in Beth's mind. Beyond personal vengeance for betrayal, beyond justice for fallen comrades. They were facing a threat to national security at the most fundamental level. "I'm in," she said simply. "Whatever it takes." As Beth left the communications room, she found Reynolds waiting in the hallway, his expression unreadable. "Everything all right?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes watchful. "Just finalizing operational details," Beth replied smoothly. "Cooper wants to begin training at first light." "Cooper's not telling us everything," Reynolds said quietly when they were alone. 3 years working together, I know when he's compartmentalizing. After Hindu Kush, we promised no more secrets within the team. But something's changed since we found you." The implicit request for information put Beth in a difficult position. Cooper had instructed her to maintain operational security, even from other team members. But Reynolds had been her spotter, the person who'd shared her hide positions through countless operations. "We're all adjusting to being a unit again," she offered carefully. "Trust takes time to rebuild." Reynolds studied her face, his expression making it clear he recognized the evasion. "Just watch yourself, Elizabeth. The mission parameters have changed more than once since we started tracking Thanatos. I'm not convinced we're all working toward the same objective anymore." His words carried a weight beyond their surface meaning, a warning perhaps, or a confession of his own doubts. Before Beth could probe further, Sanchez called them back to the main planning area. "We've got movement on the perimeter," she announced, indicating the security monitors. "Vehicle approaching from the south access road." Cooper moved immediately to a defensive position. "Identification?" "Black Suburban, government plates," Sanchez replied, enhancing the surveillance image. "Matches Winters' security detail." "Defensive positions, standard protocol," Cooper ordered. They moved with practiced efficiency, assuming tactical positions that covered all approaches to the safe house. The visitor turned out to be Major Thomas Grant, Winters' security chief. "Winters sent me with critical intelligence. Time-sensitive. Couldn't wait for scheduled contact." "What kind of intelligence?" Cooper asked. "Maxwell has moved up the timetable," Grant explained. "The Vertex Dynamics Gala has been rescheduled for tomorrow night instead of next week. Security protocols have been enhanced. Guest list restricted further. Whatever he's planning, it's happening sooner than we anticipated." The information sent a ripple of tension through the team. Their operational timeline had just been compressed from 6 days to less than 36 hours. "That's not all," Grant continued. "Winters has confirmed that Secretary Freeman wasn't the only target that day. The Deputy Secretary of Defense was scheduled to be at the same event, but canceled at the last minute. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs changed his arrival time due to weather delays." "There's one more thing," Grant added. "Winters has identified a potential mole within your former command structure. Someone who had detailed knowledge of Ghost Division operations and has been working with Maxwell since before Hindu Kush." "Who?" Cooper demanded. "He wouldn't tell me. Said the information was too sensitive to share through any intermediary. He wants to meet all of you at a secure location of his choosing tonight." The request triggered immediate suspicion. After years of careful operational security, Winters was suddenly demanding a face-to-face meeting with the entire surviving Ghost Division team. "Not happening," Cooper decided instantly. "We don't move as a complete unit. Basic operational security." "He anticipated your response," Grant acknowledged, offered an alternative. "He'll meet with just one representative. His credentials against yours." "I'll go," Beth said, making the decision that tactically made the most sense. "I'm the unknown variable. Maxwell doesn't know I've reconnected with the team. If it's a trap, you maintain operational capability." There was a moment of silence as Cooper considered the proposal. Finally he nodded. "Agreed." Beth makes contact. The rest of us maintain position and readiness for immediate response if needed. Grant provided coordinates for the meeting, an abandoned mining operation 30 miles north. Winters will be there at 2300 hours, he concluded, alone, as a show of good faith. After Grant departed, the team gathered for immediate tactical revision. I don't like it, Reynolds stated bluntly. Winters suddenly has urgent intelligence that requires an immediate meeting at a remote location. Classic ambush setup. Agreed, Cooper acknowledged. But we need that intelligence if Maxwell has accelerated his timeline. We proceed with maximum caution. The revised plan took shape quickly. Cooper would establish sniper overwatch at the meeting location while Reynolds maintained a tactical position with extraction vehicles. Sanchez would coordinate from the safe house, monitoring communications. If Winters is compromised, Beth said quietly to Cooper, if this is a trap, don't hesitate. Take the shot regardless of my position. Cooper checked the optics on his sniper rifle. That won't be necessary, he replied with quiet confidence. Because if it's a trap, you'll identify it before execution. And if Winters has betrayed us, you'll ensure he never leaves that meeting alive. As darkness settled over the Alaskan wilderness, Beth prepared for the meeting with methodical precision. Her equipment was minimal but lethal. A suppressed sidearm, 2 concealed blades, and communication equipment secured against electronic warfare. Ready? Cooper asked. Beth nodded, the familiar pre-mission focus settling over her. Phantom is operational. Cooper held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, an uncharacteristic display of concern. Watch your 6 out there. Something about this feels wrong. When doesn't it? Beth replied with grim humor. That's why they created Ghost Division in the first place. For when everything feels wrong. The team moved out into the Alaskan night, each assuming their assigned role in an operation that balanced on the knife edge between essential intelligence gathering and potential disaster. After 3 years of hiding in plain sight, pretending to be someone she wasn't, Phantom was fully operational again. The abandoned mining operation loomed against the night sky, its skeletal structures casting long shadows across the snow-covered terrain. Beth approached on foot, having left the vehicle a mile back to avoid detection. The bitter Alaskan wind cut through her tactical clothing, but she barely registered the discomfort as operational focus took over. Through her earpiece, Cooper's voice came in clear and measured. Overwatch established. I have clear lines on the main building and all approach vectors. No sign of Winters yet. Copy, Beth replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Proceeding to rendezvous point. She moved with practiced silence, her senses operating at peak alertness. A fox darted between abandoned equipment 70 yards to her left, the subtle creak of metal contracting in the cold night, and something else, the almost imperceptible sound of controlled breathing from the shadows near the main entrance. Contact, she subvocalized. Main entrance, eastern shadow. Confirmed, came Cooper's immediate response. Single figure, male, maintaining concealment. Matches Winters' profile. Colonel Winters, she called out when she reached the clearing before the main building. You wanted to meet. A figure emerged from the shadows. Robert Winters, his military bearing evident despite civilian winter clothing. He moved with the careful precision of someone who understood tactical vulnerabilities, staying clear of potential sniper positions. Lieutenant Hayes, he acknowledged, using her original designation. Or do you prefer Phantom now that you've reconnected with your team? Let's skip the pleasantries, Beth replied coldly. Your man Grant said you have critical intelligence about Maxwell and Project Thanatos. Winters reached slowly into his jacket and withdrew a small digital device. Everything I've gathered is on this. Names, dates, communication records, financial transactions. The complete conspiracy linking Maxwell to the betrayal of your unit and the development of Project Thanatos. And the identity of the mole. The mole? Beth pressed. Winters' expression grew grave. That's the most disturbing part. The evidence points to William Cooper. When the accusation hung in the frigid air between them. Through her earpiece, Beth heard Cooper's sharp intake of breath followed by a terse, "That's a lie." That's a serious allegation, Beth said carefully. What evidence supports it? Financial records showing deposits to offshore accounts following each Ghost Division operation. Communication intercepts indicating information exchange with Maxwell before the Hindu Kush mission. And most damning, Cooper's wife, Sarah, was never killed in that car accident 3 years ago, as officially reported. She's alive, being held by Maxwell as leverage. The revelation matched what Cooper had already told her, but from a completely different perspective. If Maxwell was holding Sarah Cooper hostage, it could indeed create a devastating vulnerability that would explain uncharacteristic betrayal. But whose betrayal? Communications jammed. Cooper's voice came through her earpiece, strained but clear. They're trying to cut us off. Beth, be careful. He is trying to turn you against me. Winters seemed to read her concern. Your comm's still working? Interesting. Not my doing, but it confirms what I suspected. This meeting has been compromised. He offered the digital device. Everything you need is here, including where Maxwell is holding Cooper's wife. A sudden explosion shattered the night, not close but within a few miles. The direction matched the location of the Ghost Division safe house. That's your team's location, Winters said grimly. Maxwell's made his move. How did Maxwell find the safe house, she demanded. That location was secure. The same way he's found every Ghost Division safe house for the past 3 years, Winters replied, through Cooper. Cooper's status? Beth sub-vocalized urgently. Still here, came the immediate response. That was a diversionary explosion, 2 miles south of our position. Reynolds confirms Sanchez is still at the safe house, uncompromised. Beth, Winters is playing you. I need verification, she stated flatly to Winters. Hard evidence, not accusations. Winters nodded toward the device in her hand. It's all there, but we don't have time for you to review it now. Deputy Secretary Marshall's life is in immediate danger. What's your plan? She asked, making the decision to proceed with Winters while maintaining operational caution. Cooper was still on comms, contrary to what Winters had suggested. Something wasn't adding up. My plane is waiting at a private airstrip 20 miles from here. We can be in Seattle by dawn, establish defensive positions before Maxwell's scheduled appearance. Beth nodded once, the decision made. Lead the way, but understand this. If you're playing me, if this is some kind of setup, I won't hesitate to eliminate the threat. Even if that threat is you. Winters' weathered face showed a flash of approval. I'd expect nothing less from Phantom. Cooper, she sub-vocalized as they walked toward Winters' vehicle. I'm going with Winters. Maintain surveillance. Something's not right with either his story or yours, and I intend to find out which. Understood, Cooper replied, his voice tight with tension. We'll follow at safe distance. Be careful, Elizabeth. This feels like a trap, but not necessarily for you. Stop. The flight to Seattle passed in tense silence, Beth using the time to review the evidence on Winters' device. The material was comprehensive and damning. Financial records showing payments to accounts linked to Cooper, communication transcripts revealing operational details shared with Maxwell, and surveillance photos of a woman being held in what appeared to be a secured facility with Vertex Dynamics security protocols. If the evidence was authentic, Cooper had been compromised since before the Hindu Kush mission. But Cooper had already admitted that Sarah was being held captive. He hadn't tried to hide that fact. And he'd been working against Maxwell for 3 years, albeit carefully. Either Cooper was playing an extraordinarily complex double game, or Winters was manipulating evidence to create a false narrative. The Olympic Hotel came into view, an elegant, historic building in downtown Seattle. Winters parked 2 blocks away in a position that provided clear sight lines to the hotel's main entrance while maintaining tactical distance. Grant will meet us here, Winters said, checking his watch. In the meantime, we should establish defensive positions and identify potential sniper locations. Beth was already scanning surrounding buildings for the positions she would choose if tasked with eliminating a target at the hotel. 3 buildings immediately stood out. I count 3 primary positions, 9 secondary, she reported, plus multiple ground-level approach vectors for close-range contingencies. A figure approached their vehicle from the direction of the hotel. Thomas Grant, wearing the uniform of a private security contractor. We have a problem, Grant said as he joined them. Marshall's schedule changed. He's speaking in 30 minutes, not 2 hours as originally planned. Security protocols have been modified. Different approach route, different entry point. Maxwell's people made the changes? Winters asked. Almost certainly. The new route increases vulnerability, creates a clear kill zone with limited defensive options. Beth processed this information. They're creating an optimal engagement window. Use security, predictable movement, maximum vulnerability. Winters checked his weapon. We need to move now. Beth, you take Overwatch position at the Westlake Tower. Grant and I will integrate with Marshall's security detail. Negative, Beth countered immediately. Better tactical distribution would be for me to integrate with the security detail while you establish Overwatch. My close protection skills are more current, and Grant's existing credentials give him access. Winters considered the alternative briefly before nodding. Agreed. They separated immediately, each moving toward their assigned positions with professional efficiency. Beth followed Grant toward the hotel, adjusting her body language and demeanor to project the confidence of authorized security personnel. Cooper's wife, she said quietly as they walked. Winters showed me evidence she's being held by Maxwell. Is it verified? Confirmed, Grant replied. Sarah Cooper, age 35, officially killed in a car accident 3 years ago, actually held at a Vertex facility outside Tacoma. I've seen her myself during a security rotation. And Cooper knows? Maxwell made sure of it. Sends proof of life before every operation, with threats of what happens if Cooper doesn't comply. They reached the hotel service entrance, where Grant's credentials granted them access. Inside, they moved through service corridors toward the Wellington suite, where Deputy Secretary Marshall was preparing for his appearance. Marshall is in the Wellington suite, Grant explained. Modified plan has him moving to the conference center through the north corridor, then directly to the stage. Minimal public exposure, but multiple vulnerabilities along the route. The Secret Service detail maintained a professional perimeter around Marshall, a distinguished man in his 60s with the bearing of someone accustomed to positions of authority. Grant made brief introductions, explaining Beth's presence as additional security. Schedule change came from the top, the lead agent explained. Direct order from General Maxwell's office, citing security concerns about the original route. Beth positioned herself near Marshall, establishing a protective position that would allow immediate response to threats from multiple vectors. Through her earpiece, Winter's voice came through with tactical precision. Overwatch established. I have sight lines to the entire approach route. No hostile indicators yet, but I'm tracking multiple security personnel with non-standard equipment, possible Thanatos operators. The Secret Service began final preparations for movement. A subtle movement from Grant caught her attention, his hands shifting to an inside pocket in a way that tactical operators recognized as weapon draw preparation. Compromised, Grant said quietly, the single word carrying unmistakable warning. Before Beth could respond, the main door opened, and a figure entered with confident authority. General Victor Maxwell himself, accompanied by 2 security personnel who moved with the precise economy of special operations training. Deputy Secretary, Maxwell greeted Marshall with practiced warmth. I thought I'd personally escort you to the conference. Given recent security concerns, we can't be too careful. Maxwell's eyes scanned the room, passing over Beth without apparent recognition before settling on Grant. Something changed in his expression, a subtle hardening that tactical operators would recognize as combat readiness. Major Grant, Maxwell acknowledged, I wasn't aware you were assigned to the Deputy Secretary's detail. Last-minute addition, sir, Grant replied smoothly, given the schedule change. The security detail formed up around Marshall, with Maxwell positioning himself directly beside the Deputy Secretary. Through her earpiece, Winter's voice carried urgent warning. Multiple hostiles converging on your position. I count at least 6 operators with tactical positioning. They're setting up a kill zone in the north corridor. Beth moved smoothly to Marshall's side. Sir, security compromise. We need to move you to an alternate exit immediately. Before she could implement the extraction, Maxwell's hand closed around Marshall's arm. I'm afraid there's been a change of plans, Robert, he said, his voice carrying none of the earlier warmth. National security concerns require your immediate cooperation. The tactical situation crystallized with perfect clarity. Maxwell wasn't simply planning Marshall's assassination. He was personally ensuring its execution. The surrounding security personnel were Thanatos operators positioned to eliminate Marshall and anyone who attempted to intervene. Beth made her decision in a fraction of a second. She moved with explosive speed, driving her elbow into the nearest Thanatos operator while simultaneously drawing Marshall away from Maxwell's grip. "Grant, extraction route B." Grant responded instantly, engaging a second operator while creating a path toward the service corridor. The Secret Service agents, momentarily confused by the sudden violence, quickly assessed the situation and moved to protect Marshall. Maxwell's voice cut through the chaos with command authority. "Security breach. Protect the deputy secretary." Beth countered immediately, her voice carrying the unmistakable authority of combat command. "Thanatos operators in the security detail. Maxwell is compromised. Get Marshall to extraction point. Charlie." Through her earpiece, Winter's voice confirmed the deteriorating situation. "Hostiles converging from all approaches. You're surrounded. North corridor is completely blocked." They reached the service corridor, Grant securing the door behind them as Beth led Marshall toward the emergency stairs. "Winters, we need extraction at Point Charlie. Service entrance, east side." "Negative," came Winters' tense response. "East side is compromised. Multiple hostile styles. I'm engaging from Overwatch position, but can't clear the extraction route." A new voice cut through her tactical communication. Familiar, authoritative, impossible. "Phantom, this is Iron. Hold position in service corridor. Cavalry arriving in 30 seconds. Cooper." Somehow, despite everything, Cooper was alive and operational. Before Beth could process this development, the service corridor door at the far end burst open. She pushed Marshall behind cover, weapon drawn and ready to engage what she expected to be Thanatos operators. Instead, she saw Cooper himself leading Reynolds and a tactical team in full combat gear. They moved with synchronized precision, securing the corridor with practiced efficiency. "Extraction route secured," Cooper announced, his voice carrying the calm authority that had guided them through countless operations. "Move now." "Winters is compromised," Cooper stated flatly as they reached him. "Has been from the beginning. He's Maxwell's primary asset, not me." The accusation mirrored Winters' claims about Cooper, each man identifying the other as the traitor. Beth maintained operational focus, prioritizing Marshall's extraction above resolving the conflicting claims. "Verification later," she replied tersely. "Extraction now." A tactical vehicle waited at the loading dock, engine running and positioned for immediate departure. Reynolds stood by the door, weapon ready and eyes constantly scanning for threats. "Clear so far," he reported as they approached. "But Thanatos operators are regrouping. We have maybe 2 minutes before they establish containment perimeter." They loaded Marshall into the vehicle, Cooper taking the driver's position with Reynolds riding shotgun, and the remainder of the tactical team establishing defensive positions for the departure. "What about Winters?" Beth asked as they prepared to move. "Contained," Cooper replied cryptically. "He won't be a problem." The vehicle moved out, Cooper navigating with the precise control of someone who had planned and memorized multiple extraction routes. "Someone needs to explain what the hell is happening," Marshall said, his voice remarkably steady given the circumstances. "Who are you people, and why is General Maxwell trying to have me killed?" "The short version," Cooper replied, eyes never leaving the road, "is that Maxwell has been running an unauthorized assassination program called Project Thanatos. Your audit would have exposed funding irregularities connected to the program, making you a primary target." "And Winters?" Beth pressed, unwilling to proceed further without clarification of the conflicting allegations. Cooper's expression hardened. "Winters recruited and trained Maxwell. When Ghost Division proved too independent for their purposes, they created Project Thanatos as a replacement, operators with comparable skills, but conditioned for absolute loyalty. Winters has been Maxwell's hidden partner from the beginning." "That contradicts the evidence Winters provided," Beth countered. "He claims you're the compromised asset, that Maxwell is holding your wife as leverage." "Sarah is being held," Cooper confirmed, "but not as leverage against me, as bait in a trap designed to compromise me in the eyes of the team." Winters has been playing a long game, positioning himself as the trustworthy alternative while painting me as the traitor. "It's worse than that," Cooper added grimly. "Operation Checkmate isn't just about eliminating threats to Thanatos. It's about systematic replacement of the Nuclear Command Authority with operators loyal to Maxwell and Winters. The assassination attempts against you, Secretary Freeman, and others, they're just the first phase. What's the second phase? Marshall asked. Coup, Cooper stated flatly. Maxwell positions his people in key command roles. Winters provides political cover through his connections in intelligence communities, and together they establish effective control over America's nuclear arsenal. The secure location was an operational command center, where Sanchez was already coordinating multiple information streams on digital displays. She acknowledged their arrival with a brief nod before returning to her work. Marshall is secure, Cooper announced. Status on secondary objectives? Sarah's location confirmed, Sanchez replied without looking up. Vertex facility outside Tacoma, sublevel 3, East Quadrant. Security protocols identified and mapped. Extraction team in position awaiting authorization. Maxwell, currently at Olympic Hotel coordinating response to Marshall's extraction. Security perimeter established. Multiple Thanatos operators deployed. He's locked down tight. No viable approach vector without significant collateral risk. Winters? No confirmation yet. Last known position was Sniper Overwatch at Westlake Tower. Communications went dark 3 minutes after initial engagement. Cooper turned to Marshall. Sir, we need your authorization to proceed with full operational parameters. What we're proposing goes beyond standard military protocol. It involves direct action against a serving general officer without formal charges or court-martial. Marshall considered the request with careful deliberation. If what you've told me is accurate, Maxwell represents an imminent threat to national security at the most fundamental level. Under such circumstances, Title 50 authorities would apply. He straightened, his decision made. As acting Secretary of Defense in Secretary Freeman's absence, I authorize immediate action to neutralize the threat posed by General Maxwell and Project Thanatos by any means necessary. I take full responsibility for this authorization. Cooper nodded once, accepting both the authorization and the burden it represented. Sanchez, initiate Operation Phoenix, full spectrum, all assets deployed. What's the plan? Beth asked, studying the tactical displays. 3-phase operation, Cooper explained. First, extract Sarah from the Vertex facility. Second, secure evidence of Project Thanatos and Operation Checkmate from Maxwell's secure servers. Third, neutralize Maxwell himself before he can implement contingency protocols or escape. Reynolds will lead the extraction team, Cooper continued. Sanchez coordinates intelligence and digital penetration. I'll handle Maxwell personally. And me? Beth asked, though she already knew the answer. Cooper met her gaze directly. You find Winters and eliminate the threat. You're the only one he won't see coming. The assignment was fitting. Beth had trained with Winters, had studied his techniques, knew his patterns and preferences. If anyone could outmaneuver him, it was Phantom. What about the nuclear command vulnerabilities? Marshall asked. Even if we neutralize Maxwell and Winters, they may have already compromised critical systems. Sanchez brought up a schematic on the main display. Based on intelligence we've gathered, they've installed backdoor access to the emergency action message system. In the event of a crisis, they could potentially intercept or modify nuclear launch orders. The physical access point is located in the strategic command bunker at Maxwell's facility. Then that becomes part of the mission, Cooper decided. We hit all targets simultaneously. The Vertex Dynamics facility rose like a fortress of glass and steel against the Seattle skyline. Beth approached from the south, maintaining casual pace and posture, just another professional heading to the nearby office complex. Her cover identity would withstand cursory scrutiny, but her mission wasn't infiltration. It was interception. According to intelligence provided by Sanchez, Winters had established a covert command post in an adjacent building, coordinating Thanatos response teams as they hunted for Marshall and the Ghost Division operators. From this vantage point, Beth could observe multiple security teams deploying around the Vertex perimeter, far more than would be standard for corporate security. Jackdaw in position, she reported through the secure communications system, using the old Ghost Division call signs. Multiple hostiles moving in tactical formation, professional deployment, coordinated response patterns. Copy, Jackdaw, came Sanchez's measured response. Eagle team reports similar activity at secondary target. Iron is in position at primary objective. Timeline remains synchronized. Beth maintained surveillance, tracking movement patterns and security rotations while working her way methodically toward the adjacent building. Through her earpiece, she could hear fragments of the other team's operations, Reynolds leading the extraction of Cooper's wife, Cooper himself moving to intercept Maxwell. Inside the building, she moved directly to the service stairwell, avoiding the elevators and their surveillance cameras. Intelligence suggested Winters would establish his command post on the 14th floor, which offered optimal sight lines to the Vertex facility while maintaining tactical distance. Reaching the 13th floor, Beth exited the stairwell and found a maintenance access panel that would allow her to approach from above, minimizing exposure to potential security measures. The ventilation system was tight but navigable, another advantage of her compact frame. She moved silently through the metal passages, following the building schematics she had memorized. Through her earpiece, operational updates continued. Eagle Team, objective secured, package is safe and in transit. Reynolds had succeeded in extracting Sarah Cooper. One phase complete. Oracle initiating digital penetration, firewall breach in progress. Sanchez beginning her assault on Maxwell's secure servers. Phase 2 underway. As Beth approached the 14th floor, she detected the subtle electronic signature of surveillance equipment. Winters had established a security perimeter as expected. She withdrew a small device from her tactical gear, an electromagnetic pulse generator designed to temporarily disable electronic systems without leaving evidence of tampering. The EMP created a 30-second window. Beth moved quickly, dropping from the ventilation system into an unoccupied office adjacent to her target location. She drew her sidearm, a suppressed Glock 19, and moved to the door with practiced stealth. Through the wall, she could hear voices, multiple subjects, discussing tactical deployments. One voice stood out, its familiar cadence and authority unmistakable. Robert Winters. Containment teams in position. Initiate Protocol Omega on my command. Maxwell is moving to the secure facility. Estimated time to nuclear command access, 20 minutes. The implications were clear. Maxwell was initiating the final phase of Operation Checkmate, direct access to nuclear command systems. The timeline had accelerated dramatically. All teams be advised, Beth whispered into her communication system. Protocol Omega in progress. Primary target moving to secure facility. Nuclear command systems at risk. Timeline compressed to T-20. Copy, Jackdaw, came Cooper's tense response. Adjusting approach vector, Oracle. Prioritize command system isolation over data extraction. Beth assessed her tactical options. Direct confrontation with Winters and his security team would be high risk, but allowing Winters to continue coordinating the Thanatos response would endanger every phase of Operation Phoenix. She made her decision, reaching into her tactical pack for a specialized breaching charge. Minimal explosive force, maximum disorientation effect. Placing it precisely on the connecting wall, she retreated to the optimal engagement position and detonated. The breach was textbook perfect, a stunning combination of concussive force, blinding light, and tactical precision. Beth moved through the opening before the dust had settled, weapon tracking with measured control. 3 Thanatos operators went down in the first 5 seconds. Precision shots to center mass, dropping them before they could establish effective resistance. The 4th managed to return fire, rounds impacting the doorframe as Beth rolled to cover. Through the chaos and smoke, she caught a glimpse of Winters himself, not panicked, not surprised, but moving with the deliberate precision of someone who had anticipated this exact scenario. He reached for what appeared to be a communication device, likely to warn Maxwell of the breach. Beth fired twice, the round striking the device and obliterating it before Winters could transmit. Their eyes met across the room, student and teacher, ghost and creator, now enemies locked in lethal opposition. "You're too late, Elizabeth," Winters called, his voice steady despite the tactical disadvantage. "Checkmate is already in motion. The nuclear command codes have been compromised. In 15 minutes, Maxwell will have full launch authority." "Then I have 15 minutes to stop you," Beth replied, calculating angles and approach vectors, even as she maintained dialogue. Winters chuckled, the sound unnervingly genuine. "You were always my best student, but did you really think I wouldn't prepare for this eventuality? That I wouldn't have contingencies specifically designed for Ghost Division tactics? A sudden explosion rocked the building, not from their floor, but close. Through her earpiece, Beth heard Cooper's urgent warning. Multiple hostile teams converging on your position. Jackdaw, exfiltrate immediately. Mission parameters changing. Negative, Beth responded, keeping her attention fixed on Winter's position. Primary target in sight, completing the objective. That's my girl, Winter said, his voice carrying an unsettling pride. Always the professional, always the perfect soldier. Do you know why I selected you for Ghost Division? Why I personally oversaw your training? Save the villain monologue, Beth replied, shifting position to maintain tactical advantage. You're just buying time. Time is exactly what I need, Winters agreed. Not for me, but for Maxwell, for checkmate, for the new world order we're creating. He paused, then added with chilling certainty, a world where America's nuclear arsenal answers to us alone. Beth realized the game Winters was playing. Distraction, delay, manipulation. Every second she remained engaged with him was another second for Maxwell to implement Protocol Omega. Oracle, she said into her comm. Status on command system isolation? 50% complete, came Sanchez's tense response. Encountering adaptive countermeasures. Need at least 8 more minutes. You don't have 8 minutes, Winters stated flatly, having somehow intercepted their communication. You don't even have 5. Once Maxwell completes the sequence, not even your considerable skills will be able to stop what's coming. Beth made her decision. With explosive speed, she broke cover, firing 3 precisely aimed shots as she moved toward Winter's position. The rounds found their marks, disabling the 2 remaining Thanatos operators who had been using the distraction to maneuver into flanking positions. Winters himself moved with surprising agility for his age, drawing a concealed weapon and returning fire with the practiced precision of a master operator. A round grazed Beth's shoulder, another impacted her tactical vest, the force momentarily disrupting her advance but not stopping it. They closed to hand-to-hand distance, weapons becoming unreliable in the confined space. Winters struck with calculated precision, targeting vulnerable points with the expertise of someone who had helped design the Ghost Division combat system. Beth countered, adapting patterns and introducing variations that Winters couldn't have anticipated. For 30 seconds, they engaged in a lethal dance of strikes, counters, and tactical positioning. Teacher and student, creator and creation, each seeking the decisive advantage that would end the confrontation. Beth found her opening when Winters shifted weight to deliver a debilitating strike to her knee. She absorbed the partial impact while simultaneously driving an armored elbow into his solar plexus, following with a precision strike to the brachial nerve cluster that temporarily paralyzed his dominant arm. As Winters staggered back, Beth drew her backup weapon, a compact SIG P365, and leveled it with unwavering precision. It's over, Colonel, she stated, her breathing controlled despite the exertion of combat. Winters straightened, his expression showing not fear, but a strange satisfaction. Is it? Ask yourself, Elizabeth, who created Ghost Division? Who designed every aspect of your training, your protocols, your very identity as Phantom? You did, Beth acknowledged, weapon unwavering. Then you should know. I always build in a failsafe. With frightening speed, Winters activated something on his wrist, a small device that had escaped Beth's initial assessment. A high-frequency pulse erupted, temporarily disabling her communications and the electronic components of her weapon. Winters used the momentary advantage to draw another concealed weapon, this one aimed not at Beth, but at a laptop on the central console, the command coordination system for Thanatos operations. One bullet destroys that system, and with it any chance of stopping Protocol Omega, he stated calmly. Another choice, Elizabeth. The mission or me. It was the ultimate test of Ghost Division training, prioritizing mission success above all personal considerations. Beth had only a fraction of a second to decide. She fired, the round striking with perfect precision, not at Winters, but at the device on his wrist, disabling the electronic countermeasure before he could activate secondary protocols. Her communication system reactivated instantly. Oracle Iron, target is neutralized, she reported, advancing on Winters with implacable purpose. Command system secure, proceeding with asset containment. Impressive, Winters acknowledged, lowering his weapon in recognition of his tactical defeat. You truly were my finest creation. That's where you're wrong, Beth replied, securing Winters with tactical restraints. I'm not your creation. Ghost Division wasn't your personal army. We were soldiers serving our country, something you and Maxwell forgot a long time ago. Through her earpiece, Cooper's voice came through with unmistakable urgency. Jackdaw, status, extraction team en route to your position. Primary target secured, Beth confirmed. Command systems intact. Thanatos coordination network compromised. Copy that, Cooper responded, obvious relief in his voice. Iron Team has neutralized Maxwell. Biometric access protocols aborted. Oracle has isolated the nuclear command systems and is implementing security lockdown. The mission was succeeding against all odds, against impossible timeline compression, against betrayal from the highest levels. Ghost Division was doing what it had been created to do, protecting America from threats no conventional force could address. Winters watched Beth with an unsettling combination of pride and calculation. You think this is over? Maxwell and I are just two men. Project Thanatos has dozens of operators embedded throughout military and intelligence structures. Even now, they're implementing contingency protocols. Perhaps, Beth acknowledged, but they've lost their command structure, their coordination network, and their access to nuclear systems. She allowed herself a small, cold smile. And now they'll have Ghost Division hunting them. Winters shook his head, a strange sadness crossing his weathered features. Still thinking tactically, Elizabeth? Not strategically. What happens when the world learns that American generals attempted a nuclear coup? What happens to military command credibility, to civilian oversight, to international stability? That's not my concern, Beth replied, though the implications were sobering. My mission was to stop you and Maxwell. What comes next is for others to decide. Ever the good soldier, Winters said, almost wistfully, following orders, completing the mission, never questioning the larger picture. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. But ask yourself this, who gave Ghost Division its orders? Who selected your targets? Who decided which threats warranted elimination? The same broken system Maxwell and I were trying to replace. Before Beth could respond, the door burst open, and Reynolds entered with a tactical team. Extraction ready, he announced, nodding with approval at Winters' restrained condition. Cooper's team may have secured Maxwell and the nuclear command hardware. Sarah's safe, already en route to medical evaluation. And Sanchez? Beth asked. Completing data extraction. She's isolated the Thanatos personnel files. We'll be able to identify every operator, every asset, every compromised position. Beth nodded, maintaining professional focus despite the emotional turbulence of the past hours. Let's move. As they led Winters out, he made one final observation, pitched for Beth's ears alone. You've won the battle, Phantom, but the war for America's soul is just beginning. When the dust settles, remember I offered you a place in the new order. Remember that when they inevitably turn on you, just as they turned on Ghost Division before. Beth didn't respond. There would be time later to process Winters' words, to evaluate their truth or manipulation. For now, the mission was complete, her team was intact, and a catastrophic threat to national security had been neutralized. 2 days later, Beth stood beside Cooper on the observation deck of a secure military facility overlooking Puget Sound. Below them, in a heavily guarded medical wing, Sarah Cooper was recovering from her 3-year captivity. The reunion between Cooper and his wife had been intensely private, a moment of raw emotion that had pierced even Cooper's legendary self-control. What happens now? Beth asked, watching the sun set over the water. Officially, nothing, Cooper replied. Winters and Maxwell will disappear into the deepest hole the government can find. The Thanatos operators will be neutralized or contained. The nuclear command structure will be secured, and no one will ever know how close we came to catastrophe. And unofficially, Cooper turned to face her, his expression more open than she had seen in years. That depends on you, Elizabeth. Ghost Division has been reactivated, with Marshall's authorization. Off the books, unofficial, deniable, but with a clear mandate. Hunt down the remaining Thanatos operatives. Secure the vulnerabilities they've created. Protect the country from threats it never sees coming. With you in command? Beth asked. Cooper nodded. For now, Reynolds and Sanchez are already in. Martinez gave his life for this unit, but I need my best operator back. He extended his hand. What do you say, Phantom? Ready to return to the shadows? Beth considered the offer, weighing 3 years of pretending to be normal against the clarity of purpose she had found in the past 72 hours. Elizabeth Hayes, supply clerk, had been a cover, a role she had played but never truly inhabited. Phantom was who she had always been. She clasped Cooper's hand firmly. Ghost Division serves its country, not individuals. As long as that remains true, I'm in. Welcome back, Cooper said, a rare smile crossing his face. As they stood watching the fading light, Beth knew that the challenges ahead would test every skill and bond they possessed. The Thanatos threat had been contained, not eliminated. The vulnerabilities in America's security apparatus remained, and Winters' warning about the broken system lingered uncomfortably in her thoughts. But for the first time in 3 years, she had her team back. Not just colleagues, but family. Whatever came next, they would face it together. In the shadowy intersection of national security, moral ambiguity, and personal loyalty, Phantom had found her way home. For Ghost Division, the war continued, as it always had, as it always would, in darkness, in silence, invisible guardians of a nation that would never know their names.